I am Genghis Khan. They say I was born with a blood clot in my fist the size of a sheep's eyeball. A charming omen, I admit. My father, Yasuge, took one look at that crimson lump and announced, "This boy will be a mighty conqueror." Then he promptly named me after a Tatar enemy he had just killed, Temujin, blacksmith. So, for the first 40 years of my life, I went around sounding like a man who repaired horseshoes for a living. The irony is not lost on me. The future oceanic ruler started as a village farrier. I could have done with a bit less adventure in childhood. When I was 9, my father was poisoned by Tatars at a feast. Poisoned on the step. That is like shooting a man in the bath, unsporting and deeply rude. Our tribe, the Taichiute, promptly abandoned us. There we were, my mother Holan, 6 siblings, me, and a handful of half-starved horses, and an extremely sharp resentment. Let me tell you about hunger. After 3 weeks of eating field mice, your little brother catches a fish, and you think, finally, something that isn't rodents. Then your half-brother Bector takes it from you. I killed him. My mother was furious. Not because I had committed murder on the step that was basically a Tuesday, but because she said, "We have no one to fight with us except our own shadows. Killing a potential soldier is wasteful." Wasteful. I love my mother, but her priorities were sometimes odd. She was never wrong, though. Holan was a woman who had been kidnapped by my father from her first husband again. The step, and she survived by being tougher than boiled leather. Once she sat me down, pulled open her robe, and said, "These are the breasts you sucked from." I nearly died of shame. I am the man who will conquer half the known world. But when my mother gets angry, I still feel like a 9-year-old who forgot the firewood. My most embarrassing secret, which my enemies love to whisper, is that I was afraid of dogs as a boy. My father once told my future father-in-law, "Temujin fears dogs. Do not let them frighten him." I was 10. Every great conqueror has a weakness. Mine was barking. So what? I outgrew it. By the time I faced real enemies, I learned that men were far more terrifying than any canine, and far more satisfying to defeat. Then there was the time the Taichiute caught me. They slapped a wooden kango on my neck. Imagine a heavy, splintered yoke that makes you look like a confused ox while being paraded around for public humiliation. "Come see the son of Yasuge, the failed chieftain's brat, now with extra neck pain," I escaped one night. I will not tell you how, because that would ruin my mystique. But let us just say that never again did anyone put a kango on me. The real pivot came when I married Borte. My father had betrothed us when I was 9, and I finally claimed her at 17. Borte actually. She will probably outlive me out of sheer spite, the smartest person I have ever met. She looks at my battle plans and says, "Temujin, that is stupid," and I listen. Because when your wife has been kidnapped and ransomed back, and she still puts up with your nonsense, you take her advice. We were still young and stupid when the Merkits attacked. I, ah, Historians love this part. Yes, I ran. I grabbed my mother, my brothers, my horses, and I ran. I left Borte behind. She was captured and became a Merkit wife for several months before I rescued her. Do I regret it? Of course. Do I admit it publicly? I just did. That is how you know I have stopped caring what anyone thinks. The rescue mission taught me something. Loyalty is everything. My sworn brother Jamuka helped me retrieve her. and for a while we were as close as two ambitious young men can be. He was a fine warrior, Jamuka, if a bit theatrical. He once boasted that everyone born under the same sky is a brother, which sounds lovely until he starts boiling his prisoners alive in 70 cauldrons. Yes, 70 cauldrons of boiling human soup. When I heard that, I thought, perhaps Jamuka is not the kind of man I want to build a nation with. His own men thought the same, which is why they started defecting to me. My first major battle against him, the Battle of the 13 Wings, was a tactical disaster. I lost. I had no idea what I was doing. I just charged my horsemen in a straight line like a drunken sheepdog. But Jamuka won the battle and then lost the war by being so unspeakably cruel that everyone fled his camp to join me. That is the lesson. Sometimes winning is the worst thing that can happen to you. I learned military strategy by watching my enemies fail, by stealing their best men, by noticing that Jamuka's men loved his horses but hated his personality. So I made sure my men loved my personality, or at least feared me enough to respect me. By 1206, after years of betrayals, alliances, and more betrayals, I called a Kurultai, a grand assembly of all the tribes. The chiefs proclaimed me Genghis Khan, oceanic ruler, emperor of all the people, a significant upgrade from Temujin the blacksmith. I sat on my felt carpet, surrounded by Chinese Buddhists, Nestorian Christians, Muslims, Mongol shamans, and a bewildering variety of people who had absolutely nothing in common except that they were now my people. I thought, what have I gotten myself into? But I had a plan. My first act was a law code, the Yasa. People assume I spent all my time burning cities and stealing horses. No. I spent a surprising amount of time telling my soldiers, do not loot until I say so. Do not torture people for fun. If you abandon a wounded comrade on the battlefield, I will personally execute you. I also decreed religious freedom. Worship whatever sky god you like, pray to rocks, talk to trees. I do not care. Just do not betray me. I treated my soldiers like sons. Better than sons, actually, because my actual sons were occasionally idiots. My generals I promoted based on skill, not birth. A shepherd with courage could rise to command 10,000. A nobleman with cowardice could go back to herding yaks. That was my philosophy. Many arrows bundled together cannot be broken. Unity through merit, loyalty through reward, terror through example. My soldiers loved me not just because I shared the loot. Once I said, I want to feed them with juicy meat. Let them live in beautiful yurts. They did not forget that. When your leader promises you juicy meat and then delivers, you ride into battle with enthusiasm. The conquests? You want the conquests? Fine. We took on the Jin dynasty, those Chinese emperors who thought their Great Wall would protect them from barbarians. Barbarians. As if a wall ever stopped a man on horseback who had nothing to lose. We swept over it like a grass fire. Then the Khwarezmian Empire. Shah Muhammad II, a man with more pride than sense, executed my ambassadors. 450 merchants and diplomats slaughtered because he suspected they were spies. Now I am a reasonable man. I sent envoys first. Perhaps we can discuss this over tea? He executed them too. So I turned my army around. 100,000 Mongols, a whirlwind campaign, and the entire Khwarezmian Empire ceased to exist within 2 years. Muhammad fled to an island in the Caspian and died alone. I did not even get the pleasure of watching. People call me cruel, perhaps. But cruelty is a tool, like a sword or a cooking pot. You use it when necessary. I once said, if you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you. That was not arrogance, that was marketing. Convince your enemies that you are divine punishment, and they surrender faster. And surrender was always the goal. I never wanted to kill everyone. Dead men cannot pay taxes, build roads, or weave silk. There is a quote attributed to me, historians argue, but I like it about the greatest happiness, being to defeat enemies, seize their wealth, and embrace their wives and daughters. I will not deny the sentiment, but let us be clear, conquest is fun. There is nothing like the roar of 10,000 horsemen across an open plain. But governing, not fun. Conquering the world on horseback is easy, I said. It is dismounting and governing that is hard. After you take a city, you have to feed it, tax it, keep it from rebelling, and make sure your idiot sons do not burn it down out of boredom. Sometimes I miss the simple days of stealing horses and eating marmots. Speaking of my sons, what a disappointment. Joki, my eldest, was he mine? Porte was pregnant when I rescued her from the Merkids. I have always treated Joki as my son, but my second son, Chagatai, never let him forget the ambiguity. When we discussed succession, Chagatai shouted, "We cannot let this Merkid bastard rule." I sat there, watching my two eldest sons grab each other by the collars, and I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. These were my heirs, the men who would inherit an empire from the Pacific to the Caspian, bickering like children over a toy. I finally chose Ogadei as my successor. He was not the smartest, not the bravest, but he could drink anyone under the table and somehow still keep the peace. Sometimes that is the best you can hope for. Now, I am old, 62, if the historians are correct, though I stopped counting after 50. A horse threw me in early 1227, and my body has not been the same. Internal injuries, broken ribs, the kind of pain that reminds you that even the oceanic ruler is just flesh and bone. I am still campaigning against Western Shia, a kingdom that had the temerity to refuse me troops. My generals say, "Rest, great Khan." But a conqueror who rests is a conqueror who gets a knife in the back. When I die, and I will die soon, I feel it in my marrow. Do not bury me with gold. My real legacy is not my empire. It is this: a frightened boy who was afraid of dogs and ate field mice grew up to become the ruler of the greatest land empire the world has ever seen. If that is not a good story, I do not know what is. One final word from the oceanic ruler to you. If you are afraid, do not do it. If you are doing it, do not be afraid. And if anyone tells you that you cannot conquer the world because you are afraid of dogs, ignore them. Then conquer their world and feed their dogs to the stew pot. I am Genghis Khan, not Genghis Khan.